Stephen, how are you?
I am doing fine.
May I give you a hug?
Yes, you may.
Oh, thank you. So, Stephen, you have been with the chef community for how long?
It's about 2010 or so, just after we had, in an organization I was working when we moved everything from physical to virtual with a lot of P2V shift. And,
Okay. Sorry, did you say P2V shift?
Yeah, like
Okay.
physical to virtual, so we moved it on to the virtualization.
Okay.
And in the process, I was like, I don't know what I'm moving. I don't know what's on these systems. And so I wanted to have a better way of defining those things.
Right.
So 2010, I end up armed with a copy of Web Operations and the Chef IRC channel. And I go to work doing the work of putting all of that infrastructure into code. So.
That's great. So since 2010, you've been participating in this community, starting to automate stuff. How has the community changed over the years, and how has it impacted you?
So, I feel like I kind of grew up as a developer with the community a lot, that my craft improved as the chef community improved. Moving from very basic code that was scripts that were just being executed to a point where I needed to put things more in resources, and then lightweight resource providers comes along.
Right.
Or where I want to do better testing of my application, and then Fletcher Nickel comes along with Test Kitchen. And
Test Kitchen.
Yeah.
Right?
So at each point, I'm like getting better in my own development skills and enhancing what I had as a systems administrator and Linux administrator before.
That's incredible.
So,
how many of you feel in a similar way that being part of this community has made you a better professional? All right, Stephen, why don't we take a seat, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to now?
certainly. Around 2012, I joined the University of Kansas, and I'm a part of a team that does web application development for the, it's a mouthful, but it's the Achievement and Assessment Institute at the university. It's a research organization that partners with various public agencies. In 2012, the big one that we were worried about was Kansas assessments. Okay. So we were delivering the general assessments to like children K through 12. And so we began the work of writing a new suite to do that, where it would be an interactive testing environment, and educators could write tests, deliver those to students, get the results back in reports. And so it ended up being a large distributed sort of system that had a lot of Tomcat, some Node.js running sort of background services for it. Postgres databases, and it all needed to be defined somehow in code, and so that was my job there. Huh? It was. So when I came in, it was well, we need to automate this, and I said, well, my experience for 2 years has been with Chef. There is an awesome community there. I feel completely supported, and so if I get to choose, we're doing Chef.
All right. And what's the name of that application?
So that is the Kite application, or Kansas Interactive Testing Environment for assessments, and it's pretty high stakes. I mean, if like all the students in Kansas are taking this over like about a month, just a few weeks, and so everybody's really nervous, and kids are taking their tests, and teachers are in there. So you can imagine that it's got to like really be solid.
Right, it's got to be ready to go for all of that workload. So I know through our talking earlier that you moved this from your data center and into the cloud.
Exactly. So we initially had deployed this into a VMware cluster, and had been using that for a while, but we were finding that it was difficult to scale it within that cluster without adding more nodes to the cluster and such. So we thought, because our load is so seasonal, that moving it to the cloud would be an excellent opportunity. And so we chose AWS at the time. It had a lot of the features that seemed to match up with what we were already doing.
Right.
And one of the pleasant surprises there was OpsWorks Chef Automate.
Right.
So previously we had been using Chef Server, and I had been wanting to use Automate and explore some of the features that it could provide us. but didn't really have like a convenient way to like work that into a government organization's pay sort of way of doing things.
Yeah.
So having it all bundled through AWS allowed us to like just bid that as a part of what it was that we needed to do.
Right, it's interesting, we talk about DevOps, and everyone outside of this room, of course, thinks that DevOps means dev and ops, and what you're telling us is that finance is involved in that also. You have to think about the procurement process, and having OpsWorks available, OpsWorks for Chef Automate available on AWS made that procurement process so much easier.
It did for us.
Yeah. So what other surprises did you have, or what are the things that you found really compelling about Automate?
So when we initially said that we were going to AWS, we cautioned them in that we wouldn't be able to scale up and down very easily to begin with, because our apps really weren't built to be cloud ready.
Right.
To begin with. They were somewhat cloud ready. They were cloud almost. And so we didn't think that we were going to be able to do that. I was still approaching the Chef Automate as if it were Chef Server. And so I thought there would be like a provisioning process, and then I would knife bootstrap the system.
Right.
And there would always be like this little physical bit in there until I could figure something else out. But the package that was delivered to us with the Chef Automate provided a user data script that you could use along with some IAM roles to automatically register things to the Chef server. And because we had already like built out our whole deployment process as a part of Chef pulling down artifacts and putting them onto systems, we were able to solve that registration problem, and we were able to roll out auto-scaling groups before we even went fully live with testing for the students.
Wow.
Which allowed us to then like beef it up during our heaviest weeks and bring it down afterwards. So
that's super cool. So as you moved from the data centers to the cloud, how much of your Chef infrastructure in terms of recipes and policies, how much of that had to change?
Some of it had to change. Some of it just had to change because I had written it several years ago and had become much better in the process. So we did some refactoring of those. There were some minor differences. We did decide at the time we were previously deploying to Red Hat 6 servers, and we wanted to go to Red Hat 7 servers.
Right.
So there was a little bit of tweaking involved there. The actual tweaking for AWS wasn't really that difficult. EC2 felt like any other place I'd have virtual machines in a way. So.
Right, that's awesome. And now that you're on OpsWorks, what newer capabilities are you already using, or are you looking about using next?
So next for us, I believe, is going to be InSpec and using it for auditing of our systems. We're currently doing periodical auditing, and since we deal with student data and sometimes medical data, auditing is a big deal for us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we're looking forward to bringing in the InSpec to do that. Also, my development teams, once the auto-scaling groups were coming up, and they were like, well, it's taking like 15 minutes for the system to become ready. That's too slow. And I was like, really? Too slow? That's awesome. Yes. This is great. So we'll be working together to figure out a way to speed that up. Actually, as a part of our transition process into AWS, we pulled together team members from development. So we pulled in our architect and pulled in one of our lead developers along with the operations team to work together. And the process that we've been doing is also moving more of that responsibility for the application side of the code to the developers. So I'm very much looking forward to Habitat as a way to start shifting some of that into a format that they'll better understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're here at ChefConf, and you'll be around for the rest of the day if folks want to dig in deeper?
I will totally be around the rest of the day. I'm staying for the hack day.
Oh, excellent, for the hack day as well. Did the rest of your team come with you?
They did not get to come with me. We were kind of invited at last minute, but I brought them along with me in this photo. So.
All right. Well, let's hear it for Stephen and his team. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.